for being here. I'd like to call the Tourism Committee to order. And we have 3 bills to discuss today. And we're going to first call up Senate Bill 2142, and I'd like to invite Senator Hickman, since it's his bill, to explain it to us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you and the committee for taking up this bill. This bill is pretty simple. It would make the American Quarter Horse our state horse. At this point, we do not have a state horse. I think Mississippi is a deeply agricultural state, and I think horses are embedded part of that. I also know that the quarter horse is probably the most popular horse in the state. We've gotten some great support from doing this, and as you can see, we have a great bipartisan list of supporters that support the quarter horse becoming the state quarter horse. And at this time, I'll yield for any questions.
Are there any questions for Senator? Yes, Jeremy. Senator England, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Hickman, why don't we designate the entire horse instead of just a quarter of the horse?
Are there any serious questions for Senator Hickman?
You're a co-author.
Senator England, do not make me use my spoon. Are there any other questions for Senator Hickman? All right, then for a motion. Motion is titled sufficient to pass. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right, this bill will be reported out. Thank you. All right, the next bill that we have, and we're going to go to the third bill on our agenda, which is the Mississippi Golf Association Grant Program. And we have to keep this one moving because it's doubly referred. So I have asked our Vice Chair, Senator Robin Robinson, if she would explain this bill for us. So if you will call your attention to Senate Bill number 2711, you're recognized, Senator Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're taking up Bill number 2711, as Madam Chair indicated, and it has to do with creating the Mississippi Golf Association Grant Program. Now, the bill that you have before you is an act to create the Mississippi Golf Association Grant Program, and it has 4 components to it. One is to be used to make grants for the purpose of creating, enhancing, and revitalizing golf courses. Also, it will provide that such fund be administered by the Mississippi Development Authority. And it's going to be prescribed to certain conditions and allocations from the fund for those who are applying to the fund. And it will be run through the local economic development authorities. And to prescribe to these eligible funds, it will be determined how those funds will be allocated. If you have the bill in front of you, it's pretty self-explanatory. Senator Thompson is the author of this bill. So, Madam Chair, if there are no questions, this completes my section of the report unless Senator Thompson would like to add something.
Thank you very much. Senator Thompson, thank you for joining us. Would you like to speak on this bill since it is the one you've authored?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Robinson did a great job explaining the bill and what we're trying to accomplish here. We've got a vehicle in the state with the Mississippi Golf Association. They run a number of tournaments around the state. In doing so, they're bringing people to the state of Mississippi to play golf on our golf courses. And this is an effort to try to set up a fund in place that we can have in place to help the Mississippi Golf Association attract more people to the state through golf tournaments and other golf events as part of an extension of tourism.
Are there any questions? Senator Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I think this is a good bill. Just a question. You've got the money funneling through MDA. I know that tourism falls under MDA, but should it not funnel through tourism?
Well, hold on, I'm not sure I'm following your question.
I mean, if I'm understanding right, tourism's kind of got a hold of their budget where they can run that, and instead of the MDA general appropriations budget, should it not run through tourism since this is a tourism vehicle?
I can't speak to that directly. I got to plead ignorance, but my appreciation was it was going to MDA because there was the tourism
Okay, I may be
element
saying it
there.
wrong.
that would be going.
It just, I mean, we got different divisions with MDA, is the assumption being that the tourism component, the leadership in tourism would administer these dollars.
I'm sure Visit Mississippi would be heavily involved with this since that is a component of MDA, Mississippi Development Authority. This bill is something that Senator Thompson has offered to us to try to enhance our golfing experiences for our tourists that would be coming to Mississippi. And I'd like to thank Senator Robinson for her special interest in this because, as you well know, she comes to us from a career at Sanderson Farms, which has been the sponsor for our only professional golf tournament. So I think she is the correct person to have offered this
Okay,
explanation. But
Thank you.
we're moving it along today. Senator Williams is the main thing. Unless you have an objection to what.
no, it's a good idea. It's a good bill. Just-
All right, well, then would you like, is there here, we have a question from Senator Norwood.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to inquire, how much money are we potentially looking at that would be asking to go into this grant fund?
Is it, were there any numbers mentioned in there?
Madam Chair and Senator Thompson, you can help me with this if you would like, but currently they're setting up the fund, and the bill says it shall consist of money from any public or private source designated for deposit into such fund, and the state treasurer will hold these dollars in a special fund. There isn't a specific dollar amount that I see in the bill, sir. Right.
It's an enabling bill, that's correct.
Okay.
Senator Butler?
I don't know if it would have any effect at all on the university golf courses unless they were being used to host a tournament or some other golf event that could be funded by this. So typically, when an event is held at a golf tournament, at a golf course, they rent, even for the student athletes, they rent the golf course from whoever owns the golf course. If it's a private entity or if it's a public course or if it's a university course, they pay those green fees for that event. So I guess there's a scenario where monies from this fund could be used to pay green fees at a university course. But that would not be that would not be the direct intent. It's really to give Mississippi Golf Association a mechanism to try, or some funding to try and use golf as a way to bring more folks to the state.
Does that answer your question, Senator Butler? All right, and if there are no further questions for a motion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, this bill will be reported out.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I believe we now have our proposed committee substitute before you, which is for the second item on our agenda, which is the Mississippi Main Street bill to bring forth certain code sections. As you remember, last year, we had a bill that would enhance and enable Main Street. This simply makes it a little bit more expansive, and it helps define the tiers by which communities or entities can be part of Main Street. And I have spoken with Zoe at length about this, and she has helped explain to me that this will only make it easier for small communities to participate in it. And the way I have likened this approach is that many small communities or many entities are unable to fully become Main Street members at this time. But we have small communities, and I always lift up a small community in my district, which is North Carrollton. They are associate members. This allows them to have all the information that Main Street has researched. All of their data is available to them. But it does not mean that they cannot then, later on, if their tourism approach is so successful, that they can join Main Street as full-fledged members and then can apply for the grants and so forth. Am I saying this correctly, Zoe? You're over there. I think we communicated about this pretty well. I believe this is a good bill. I'm glad that Senator McCon has brought it before us, because last year he had some concerns about the bill as it was passed. And since this is his bill, I feel sure he will no longer have any concerns about it. Does that answer your questions? I will attempt to clarify if I did. Yes, sir. Senator Williams.
I think you did answer it, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just a point of clarity. Membership in the Main Street Association is not a requirement for grant application, correct? And or award.
I don't believe it is. I don't think that
I
is at
just
all.
want to make sure.
I don't believe it is at all.
Okay,
Uh,
that's it. Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Well, Madam Chairman, and that is, how will this affect in, communities that were a part of Main Street program, but lack of funds caused them to not be able to continue to be a part? So they be able to reapply.
Oh, I think that won't be a problem at all. I'm sure they'd be happy to take the community's money if they have to step back because of problems with funding, or maybe their budgets have had a shortfall. There's nothing that keeps people from being able to be members. And in fact, there was some concern, I believe we talked about, that priority would be given to people who had not been funded in the previous year. It does not keep people who have been funded in previous years from reapplying, but they're going to give priorities to people and communities. When I say communities, I mean entities because it was pointed out that Bellhaven is a member of the Main Street community. That's just a neighborhood. So if a neighborhood can see the value of this in a tiny, tiny town like 400 population, North Carrollton or Vaden, which I think is going to become a Main Street associate member. If these tiny communities can see the value of it, and it's open to all of them to apply for grant monies, then there's no reason why we should not offer them these opportunities. And that's as I understand it. I'm sorry, if Senator McCon were here, I'm sure he could explain it better than I. But we have a committee substitute before us because it cleaned up some of the language that people had questioned. So if that explanation is sufficient, if it's not, I'll try to get somebody that's an expert. All right, Senator Wiggins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question or concern is that maybe this is why this bill is before us, because there's been what I call, and I don't know all the background, but friction from what I've heard with these grants. And maybe that's what Senator McCon was trying to address. And so the grants, is that money coming from us in the state legislature?
I believe that is correct. I want to make sure. I mean, Main Street also gets monies from private funders.
Right.
They're not.
Right.
I'm sorry. We had Thomas Gregory with us last year. He was the head of the Main Street Mississippi program, but he has since taken a different job.
So they get private. It's my understanding that up until a couple years ago, there was not a funding source from the state legislature. And then that changed. And then that's when everybody went off into their corners and started fighting over the money. So that's what I'm hoping this bill is doing. And that's trying to make that happen.
What, make them fight in corners?
No, heck no. To make that, improve that. Is
Oh,
that
I
what we're
think that-
trying to do?
Yes, sir. I do believe that is Senator McConn's purpose in presenting this bill to us. I will tell you that in the 18 years that I have been here, it has been my experience that when there is no money, there are no fights. But as soon as there is a stream of money, even if it's for advertising, for tourism, as we recently have found out, as soon as you've got a pot of money, somebody's interested in laying hands on it. So I'm sure that Senator McCon gave us this legislation because he wanted to be sure that there would not be any retreating into corners and trying to fight over the funding.
Well, to
It
that
makes it more
point,
transparent.
right, to that point, line 53, applicants who didn't receive an award last year get priority. So is that what we're trying to dole out money?
Well, and if they
to
did not
people that
receive an award, they can apply again. They have to
But
apply.
they have to meet the requirements.
Right,
Main Street.
right.
Huh. So that's my question is, to get the grants, do they have to meet the requirements to be a Main Street community?
Yes. This is to make sure that the playing field is level. if that's your concern, that somehow the priority is being given to.
Well, I guess my question is, do they have to get these grants? Do they have to meet the requirements to be a Main Street community? And I've had a couple members say no. So then does that in a way, does that devalue the purpose of a Main Street program?
I believe we have someone who represents Main Street is here today, and I'd like to recognize him to answer your questions. He's probably better equipped than I am. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Senator. John Morgan Hughes, here on behalf of Main Street, Mississippi. Senator, to your question, our interpretation of the committee sub is that it would open this program up to non-Main Street communities, but those communities would have to have essentially what we would call like city planner or architectural level plans for their projects. So that's the difference in the old program as it was passed last year, where you actually had to be one of the 48 Main Street communities, certified Main Street communities. This bill would open that up to essentially say other communities that have received some type of similar urban planning or architectural renderings designation.
So then what's the benefit of being a Main Street community if you can be a community or a community plan community? So what's the value in that?
So in the bill, it does,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry for the line. In the bill, it does still stipulate that the Main Street Association is the clearinghouse for reviewing all projects. So they'll review both Main Street submission projects and non-Main Street community projects. So there is still that safeguard in place in the legislation.
And since you're looking.
Safeguard for what?
Safeguard for the existing Main Street, for the communities who have made the local investment to become Main Street communities.
Okay. So to that point, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Communities have to make a strategic investment into their community to be recognized as a Main Street community. And that, I guess that's where I'm going when I mention about the devaluing. And if we just say, oh, guess what? You get to be a community with money and you're therefore a Main Street program, seems like what's the incentive for the communities to continue to invest and meet those requirements?
Yes, sir. No, that's a fantastic question. I think the short answer to that is there are other things, there are positive externalities other than participation in this grant program of why communities would want to be a Main Street program. Now, you Starkville, where Senator Williams from as an example, they've done wonderful. They've used essentially their Main Street charrette plan. They've coincided it with their bond request from the state, as well as federal member directed project requests. So they've kind of done this triumvirate of funding around their Main Street plan. And they host all kinds of wonderful events and, festivals and those type things. So there is much more benefit to being a certified Main Street community outside of just eligibility and participation in this program. But I think to the core of your question is, could there be some dilutive effect to allowing more communities to enter the program who are not necessarily Main Street certified communities? I think the answer to that would be yes, you are making more communities eligible, but the program right now does not have a specific cap.
Okay, I thank you for answering.
Yes,
So
sir.
how is that fair to the communities who have put the money, effort, time in it to become a Main Street program, a Main Street community? How is that fair to them?
So I would defer to the maybe direct you to have a conversation with the author of this legislation to that point. He may have a better answer for you than I would on that issue.
Madam Chairman,
Well, okay.
Senator Butler?
I'd also like to add that I have been a part of the Main Street program, and that before you can become a part of a Main Street program, there are stipulations that is laid out as to criteria that you must meet. And downtown areas that have historical things in the community and they are deteriorating. These are some of the criteria put in place to meet that. The state will advise those individuals that are planning to become a part of the Main Street program. The state will advise them as to criteria that they must meet on the state level. And once they meet those state levels, then they can be accepted into the Main Street program.
On line 98 of the bill, it explains the involvement that will be the Mississippi Department of Archives and History when it has to do with historic places such as Port Gibson, I believe, and I'm just supposing that's the community that you're speaking of, Senator Butler. And I think everyone that realizes that archives and history is a very credible source for what is historic and for what is not. They have been very helpful to me in my district because I have a number of places in Carroll County that are of historic significance, as we all have. And I really believe, Senator Wiggins, that Senator McConn's intent was to open this up to more communities. It seems like in conversations I had with him last year, his concern was that there was not as much accessibility as he would hope.
I will be, I'll be
All
happy
right.
to talk with him,
Thank you.
but there's been time, effort, and money by Main Street communities to become a Main Street community. And then, as has been testified to here, by opening up, you devalue it. Now, if what Senator Butler's saying, if the state's going to help these other communities, let's just call it rise to the level to become a Main Street, that makes all the sense in the world. But I don't know why we want to devalue those who have chosen and worked to become a Main Street program.
I think this is just an effort to be more inclusive for all of our communities. Not every community has the professional help that perhaps some of our larger towns have. And I really believe that's what we're trying to do is be more inclusive. I don't think there's any effort to devalue the efforts of any community over another.
I know that's not the intent, but as I open my comments, the pitchforks came out when the state decided to get involved and start making grants. So then the pitchforks came out, and then it became this whole free-for-all, let's just say. So I think we just have to be smart, which is why I'm raising these issues. And I'll talk with Senator McConn, and I appreciate the time.
Well, and I'm sorry he was unable to be here with us today because I believe he could have explained it much better than I. But given even my poor explanation and the help that I've had from others on this, is there a motion? Committee sub. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, this bill will be reported out committee sub. And thank you all so much. I think we've had a healthy discussion today, and I appreciate your concerns that have been lifted up before us today. We do good work, and it's all about bringing people to Mississippi and bringing money to Mississippi. So is there a motion? Rise report. Thank you.